A little tardy, about 1:48 p.m. to the governor's appointees. I want to welcome all of you. Why don't we start out the session by establishing a quorum. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Cannella? Here. Cannella here. Leyva? Here. Leyva here. Mitchell? Here. Mitchell here. Fuller? DeLeon?
Here.
DeLeon here.
All right, we've established a quorum. We're going to bring up our first appointee today. That is Mr. Michael Minor. Mr. Michael Minor. Mr. Michael Minor, welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Michael Minor, you are here for the position of Director of the Division of Juvenile Justice, Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. If there's anyone that you'd like to introduce, please do so, and please move forward with your statement, and then we'll go to a question and answer commentary.
Thank you, Ms. Pro Temp. First, I'd like to acknowledge my wife, Michelle, who can't be with us today, but I want to thank her for her unwavering support and ongoing love. And I would like to acknowledge just a couple people. Secretary Tosh is in the room, and other members of Cabinet, as well as two of my executive team. So I'd like to acknowledge them also.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And in opening, I guess I'll start by saying I think I'm the most fortunate public servant in the state of California. Starting my career as an officer in the early 80s, 1986, I've had an opportunity to promote through the ranks and hold several supervisory and management level positions prior to retiring in 2010 as the superintendent of the Northern Complex just south of here in Stockton, California. When I retired in 2010, I was asked to stay on to help recruit my replacement as superintendent and stayed on to do so. In June of 2011, I was asked to come to the headquarters office to serve as the acting deputy director. And I took on that assignment, and those opportunities have provided me an opportunity for both a great deal of personal and professional development. In 2012, I was asked to come out of retirement to serve as the Chief Deputy Secretary of the Division of Juvenile Justice. And after much consideration and talk with my family, I decided to take on that task. When I took on the assignment, I had several goals in mind. And I'll just briefly like to speak about three of those goals. The first goal was to ensure that we had enhanced services to the youth that we are charged to serve. And today I think we've done that. We've shifted the organization from an organization based on punitive correctional devices to an organization more focused on behavioral health and dealing with some of the most high-risk, high-need youth in the state of California. Today, when you go to our facilities and you speak with our youth, they'll be able to talk to you about their protective factors and identify those risk areas that they're working on to improve their chances of success upon reentry into our communities. My second goal was to change the conversation or the discussion around the state juvenile justice system. And I think that's also changing. As you reflect on the numerous reports from the experts over the last several years, the special master, advocates for juveniles who was once stood up against the state system and asked for its dismantling, no longer is doing so. We have an organization that is being spoken about nationally for the innovative and programs that we've implemented, and we're proud of that work. The third major thing that was on my list was to terminate the Farrell lawsuit. The Farrell lawsuit was filed in 2004. Consent decree was signed in 2005. And I can say in the past 36 months, the division has successfully terminated 4 of the major remedial plans that were identified in the Farrell lawsuit. In March of this year, we terminated the fifth remedial plan, which was the safety and welfare remedial plan, which by far was the most complex plan that was identified in a Farrell lawsuit. There's 2 areas in that plan that we are working on, but what that means for the organization is that we've terminated those remedial plans, that we no longer have court oversight, that the experts that were being held by the court to oversee the organization no longer is doing so. In other words, that has been relinquished to the department to oversee and manage, and we're proud of those accomplishments. Just in closing, I would like to thank the governor for the opportunity and his continued support and faith in my leadership. I'd like to acknowledge the administration, my executive team, and the headquarters staff who has really embraced the concept that we're there to support the facilities. And finally, the facility leadership and the staff that's on the ground that's working every day to work with the most challenging, high-risk youth that California has. Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem, and I welcome any questions for you and the members.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Minor. Thank you very much for your statement. We're going to open it to questions and commentaries from the members now, the Rules Committee. We'll start with Ms. Leyva.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. Good afternoon, Mr. Minor. I very much enjoyed meeting with you, and the 3 goals that you just outlined, I very much enjoyed hearing those. I think you're making great progress. I had a question about the female population. I think there are about 600 and 9,700 males and 24 females. Just maybe you could elaborate on how you're doing things differently and making sure that the females are successful as well.
Thank you, Senator. In the female population today, we have about 24 young ladies that are in our Ventura facility in Southern California. And it's a challenge because you have very few females in a predominantly male-dominated environment. So we've taken steps to ensure that both the physical and psychological well-being of those females are paramount. We've done so by making sure that staff are trained on gender responsiveness, that they understand that females function differently in the sense that they are very relational, and that we make sure that we are also focusing on the trauma that many of our youth have been exposed to. And that goes across the board to both the male and female youth that we serve. But certainly we want to make sure that our staff understand those things. And operationally it becomes a challenge, but we've put steps in place to engage the young women and men in appropriate settings where it's appropriate and highly supervised. And to date, we haven't had any significant problems with that. But it's one of those things that we continue to monitor. We continue to ensure that we're reaching out to other agencies to make sure that we're bringing folks in to talk to our staff, talk to the youth, so that we are using the most current treatment interventions that's female appropriate.
Very good, thank you. One other question. There's been a lot of change. What I see is very positive change. You probably have some staff that's been around for a while. Has this new direction been hard on some staff, or has everybody embraced kind of the new model?
Considering that, in corrections across the nation, rehabilitation was sort of set aside in the early 80s. And it became the get tough on crime era. Lock them up and throw away the key. Treatment doesn't work. And so certainly we're moving in a different area. And there have been growing pains for many of us, including myself. I mean, I grew up in Organization 86. When I came in, I heard about the California rehabilitation, the model, the innovative programs. But to me, as a entry-level officer, it really meant nothing other than the fact I felt as though I come to work, I do my job. If that means I need to escort someone from point A to point B, that's what I would do. If I'm supposed to be somewhere at 10 o'clock, that's where I'm at. No one, or I never had the opportunity of anyone to say to me how important I was in that process, that because of my daily interaction, I was the most powerful person in that young person's life. And my interaction with that young person could make the difference in their behavior, actions, and thoughts. We have done a great deal of training with our staff, again, focusing on brain development, trauma-informed training, other things around crisis intervention, conflict resolution, but certainly there are staff within the organization that may not have not come along to that point, and we continue to work with them, and we do so through a variety of ways, and that's really having good, strong quality assurance processes in place. And we've shifted our focus not only to just training the staff in an intervention, but to bring that other component in where we're working, that we're coaching and mentoring. And so we're asking supervisors to be on the floor, managers to be on the floor to observe things and then make corrections when appropriate so that we can teach, because we're all learning. Many of these things are new to us and we're learning. And so we have to be open to that.
Terrific. Thank you for what you do for the youth of our society that really need it, and I look forward to confirming you today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Senator Leyva. Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Minor, I appreciated our time together again, and you have a very good grasp of the professional qualifications and experiences that you need, and you have a good heart. And it seems to me that I'm willing to trust your heart today to let you have another chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Fuller. I was also engaging and nice talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. Mr. Cannella? Okay, we'll go to our last member here, Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Minor. As Senator Leyva alluded, I think the culture shift that's happened in DJJ is one that when I think about a variety of state institutions and organizations, I can't think of a institution that's had such an extreme pendulum swing in such a short period of time, quite frankly, as DJJ. And from my perspective, the Farrell case and all of the remedial plans really are the floor. That's what the court said minimally we have to do to be in compliance. And so tell me as the director what your vision is beyond remediation of Farrell in terms of really continuing on with this pendulum swing, recognizing the national trend change around lock 'em up versus rehabilitation. And also when I think about kind of the national movement around institutional living across the board, not just in corrections, but the Lanterman Act for people with developmental disabilities, that we're moving from institutionalization to community-based rehabilitation, whatever that looks like, be it based on criminal offense, be it based on a developmental disability. So that's, I think, the national trend across the board around institutional living. What's your vision? What will the next 10 years, 20 years in DJJ look like? And will the population continue to shrink? Or given the new population that you're serving, thanks to state laws and realignment where many services are being, it's not as if those kids went away, they are shifted to county probation, to local oversight. So both, what's the emerging new population that will be housed in DJJ, and what will that housing and structure look like?
Okay. I think I'll start by saying the mantra for myself and the executive leadership and organization has been, number one, to talk about not so much what we have to do, but talk about the why of what we do. Because initially, the large conversation in the agency was, we have to do this because of the Farrell lawsuit. And we have worked hard to change that conversation, to say, no, the Farrell lawsuit has its parameters. What are we doing because it's the right thing to do? And if we do it because it's the right thing to do, it doesn't make any difference whether we have a lawsuit or not, then we'll continue to do those things. That's number one. I think the vision for the organization is bright. And the reason I say that is because the things that myself and people in, I guess, my age group or came along, has been in the agency as long as I have, we've had to relearn things about treatment and rehabilitation. We had to be open to say the three most hardest words in the English language: I don't know. And we've learned to do that. And I think it sets the tone for others to say, okay, if they can do that, so can I. And so today, as you look at the trainings that we're doing around the intervention, the evidence-based programming, those staff that are coming into the organization are getting it on the ground floor. So they're going to grow up with that. Just as the folks before me in the early 70s so grew up in an apartment, because when people came to work for the Division of Juvenile Justice, they came to work with it because they wanted to work with what we identify as kids. And many of them are 21, 22 years old, but for us, they're kids. And they wanted to do that. That's the work they wanted to do. And that's changed over time, but that pendulum is swinging back. And so those folks today will have a much better grasp on the things that we're trying to do around evidence-based programming, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, all those things that are all the sciences that are suggesting this, here's your best chance for impact and recidivism and making a person better. And so I think that's where we are in the organization. One of the things that we did, and we thought it was really critical that we do, is that we revised our curriculum for our 16-week academy. And we didn't finish all the things that we wanted to do, but what we were trying to do was integrate into our training the concept of what's being identified as the IBTM, the Integrated Behavior Treatment Model. That's the framework that we're required to develop in California as the model. So when you think about systems like Louisiana model, the Missouri model, now we're going to have the California model, and it's made up of these components. And what we have to do is not become introverted any longer. We have to open our eyes up, continue looking forward, continue to look at the science, continue to look for research and data to support those things that we're doing. And we're not quite there yet, but that's the vision for the organization.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mitchell. Any other questions or commentaries from the members? Seeing none, those individuals or groups who are in support of today's nomination, again, that is Mr. Minor, please come to the microphone and you may express your support of this nomination. If I see no support right now, those in opposition to Mr. Minor. Seeing no opposition either, can I entertain a motion? We have a motion made by Madam Vice Chair. Mr. Minor, I have read your questionnaire. You are qualified, but more importantly, the way you express yourself shows a real genuine concern, obviously, for these young men and women who are in a very troubled phase, who still need a shot to make it in life and improve their life. So with that, we have a motion made by Madam Vice Chair. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Canella? Aye. Canella, aye. Leyva? Aye. Leyva, aye. Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye. Fuller? Aye. Fuller, aye. DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
This nomination passes on a 5-0 vote. We'll move your nomination to the Senate floor. Congratulations, Mr. Minor.
Thank you all. Thank you all for your time.
Colleagues, we're going to move on the agenda. However, we're going to make a small edit right now. We're going to go to Mr. Eric Banks. So we're going to do a little dancing around the agenda. We're going to go to Mr. Banks right now, who's file item number letter C. Mr. Banks, welcome. If there's anyone that you'd like to introduce or recognize, please do so. If not, and/or go ahead and give us your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem and
Thank you.
Senators. I'd like to recognize my partner, Richard Aguirre.
And where would he be?
Okay.
Welcome.
My mother and my brother are watching online from New York.
Oh,
so
okay,
welcome
fantastic.
to them from afar.
Hello, everybody in New York.
And I am joined today by my colleagues on the board, members Eugene Huguenin, Priscilla Winslow, and Mark Gregerson.
Feel free to proceed.
I'm here today also with members of the board of PERB, members Eugene Huguenin, Priscilla Winslow, and Mark Gregerson.
Where would they be? Oh, they're hiding back there. Hi, Priscilla. How you doing? Where's Jean? They're back in the corner. That's how they get. Well, my former colleagues.
Okay.
CTA. Yeah.
I enjoy working with them very much. So thank you for having me today. It was an honor in 2013 to be appointed by the governor to this board. And it's been my mission to work to get the backlog down and to bring resolution to our parties and as best we can explain the board's decisions in a very clear and meaningful way, as well as to demystify and increase the transparency of the board. And I think we've taken some measures to do that. It was an equal honor to be reappointed this year by the governor, and I'm happy to be here today to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your short presentation, which is a good thing.
I paid attention.
Let's go. We'll go to questions and answers. Questions, commentaries from the members. We'll start with Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you very much, sir, and I have no questions.
Fantastic. Mr. Canella? No questions. Seeing none. Madam Vice Chair?
I have one question. We found some information that there may be some out there that think that some of the PERB decisions lean heavily in favor of employees rather than employers. Tell me how you judge whether the decisions are fair and how you help others accept your decisions.
I've heard that criticism, and I think the easiest way to address it, Senator, is that our decisions are based in the statute and a relevant law from the whether it be the appellate court or the Supreme Court. When we look at our decisions, we look at them from that lens, not from as to whether or not they're going to be pro-union or anti-union or pro-management, anti-management. The law is the law, and we try and follow it as best we possibly can. I think we're conscious of that lens. I mean, I can speak to myself personally. There were two of my decisions, there were two decisions that were heralded by management or discussed by management as being pro-labor that the board had issued. Both of those were mine. I have sided with unions, I've sided with employers, and I look at the law and what's right. If I'm anything, I'm pro-statute, I'm not pro-who wins.
So if the law is so clear, why do we need a board? Because that's the role I'm trying to get you to explain.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, there still are disputes in that, and reasonable minds will disagree, and they'll interpret those things differently. And the board at times has changed its mind on this interpretation of the law, and we do review that and have reviewed that. And I know in my decisions, although they've been a bit lengthy, they've been lengthy because I'm trying to actually explain why we're getting to the place that we're getting in our decision.
Do you have any thoughts on, I mean, obviously, if you've heard the criticism yourself as well, have you had any thoughts on what you and the board might want to do to help dispel that? Because everybody needs to feel that they're coming to a fair place, and they do read up on things before they come, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure they do. We have made ourselves more accessible to the public, and I believe the workings of the board have been more accessible to the public. Examples are, for the first time in 10 years, when I came on the board held oral arguments, where parties came, the members of the public were able to see the board deliberate. And we did it again last year as well on a case. We've held advisory committee meetings where our constituents can come, get updates from the board, and also express their concerns to the board itself. And this year we actually did an online survey through SurveyMonkey, so people that couldn't come to one of our regional meetings were able to give their input.
Did you do anything with those findings?
They're still being tabulated. I can share a bit of what I've seen from looking at them. Were length of time for decisions to be issued, and more staff from the board to get things out sooner. And there were some questions regarding the searchability of our website and the user friendliness of our website, which I know will be are being looked at by the board itself right now.
Okay, so specifically to lay at rest the issue of whether the board is fair and balanced in its composition and therefore fair and balanced in its decisions. And specifically in light of sort of the unofficial information, what do you think can be done to help that perception?
The perception on the outside?
Yes.
Well, I think the governor's addition of Member Gregerson, who comes from the management side of labor relations world, is a good step in that. And his presence is welcomed. I've found him to be a pleasure to work with. I've had a few cases where I've had the ability to deliberate with him on, and I found his insight extremely helpful. Short of that, the board is going to continue to issue decisions based on what we believe is correct in the statute, and that's beyond that, beyond explaining our decisions, and we can't open up our deliberations to the public. That's not possible. So it's hard for me to give any concrete so I can answer that question beyond what I've already have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. Senator Leyva.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. Good afternoon, Mr. Banks.
Good afternoon.
I just wanted to say I'm very happy that you are on the board and that you'll be serving again as a former union president myself. I think that you bring a unique perspective to the board that is probably not the majority on the board, so happy to have you there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Leyva. Why don't we go to those who are in support of Mr. Banks? Those who are in support of Mr. Banks, please come up to the microphone. Those who are in support of Mr. Banks. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, Senators Terry Brennan, on behalf of SEIU California, I do this at the risk of losing votes he might already have, for those that know me. But Eric has been a friend and acquaintance for several years. He's always accorded himself both at the union and at PERB in a professional manner, and we encourage your aye vote in support of his nomination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brennan. Those in support of Mr. Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Tristan Brown with the California School Employees Association, here in support of the reappointment of Mr. Banks for his integrity, his knowledge of the law, and his objectivity in doing the job thus far. We think he's a great addition to the board, and we hope he's reappointed, and we urge a unanimous vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other folks in support of Mr. Banks? Any other folks in support? Seeing none, those in opposition? Those in opposition, also seeing no opposition. Mr. Banks, are you still a resident of San Diego?
I am.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Richard gave me a very quick ultimatum. If you left San Diego, I'd be leaving him behind. So I still live there.
I wouldn't blame Richard. I wouldn't blame Richard. Yeah. I wouldn't blame him at all. So with that, I've looked over. I'm familiar, obviously, with your background and your work. I'm satisfied that you'll do a very fine job. Why don't we entertain a motion? We have a motion made by Ms. Leyva. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Canela? Aye. Canela, aye. Leyva? Aye. Leyva, aye. Mitchell? Fuller? DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Okay, we have 3 votes to 0 right now. We're going to keep the roll open right now. So I think it's a safe bet to say, Mr. Banks, that in a few moments, given some few minutes here or there, we'll be sending your nomination to the Senate floor. So I'll give you, I thought that was that's not Ms. Mitchell, but we'll give you belated congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Banks. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go with the state architect, Mr. Chester Whittam. Mr. Chester Whittam. And then we'll get to our last appointment, Mr. Mullen. Mr. Whittam, welcome.
Thank you.
Please, if there's anyone you'd like to introduce, please do so. If not, you can cut to the chase and go right to your
Well, I do have
statement.
a few folks that
Fantastic.
join me here.
Let's hear it. Let's see what-
My wife is ill in the hotel, so, but I know she would love to be here. But I'm really excited. My daughter Hillary Veach is here. My son and daughter-in-law.
Where would they be at?
They're
They here?
sitting right.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Usually they raise their arms when they say daughter, father, son. Welcome.
Son and daughter-in-law, David and Elizabeth Whittam. My grandchildren, Isai and Maya Whittam, who are sitting over there.
Welcome. Hi.
And a friend and my daughter-in-law's mother, Guadalupe Gonzalez Lopez, is here with us as
And
well.
hello, Ms. Gonzalez, welcome.
So I'm really pleased to be here. As I stated in my first confirmation, and it's still true, this is a capstone for my career, not a stepping stone. And I want to remind Senator Fuller that at that point you said to me, you hope it wasn't a tombstone. I'm still here, and I've been using that line and giving you full credit along the way. I loved it. I've been asked, why do I want another term? In a single word, it's about legacy. I want to leave knowing that I've made a difference, specifically in 2 areas. One is the first is about the establishment for the next generation of a lasting culture of collaboration and transparency between DSA and the educational community in California. And we've been working very hard to make that happen, and as an example, we have been fostering the next generation. I'm really pleased to say that the next regional manager for Oakland will be the first woman regional manager in the history of 100 years of DSA, and that's Dessa Rooney. And I'm very proud of her. She's a terrific person, and I think she's going to make a major difference.
Congratulations.
The second is at the same time both very broad and very personal. I'm an architect with a passion for not only design of great buildings, but also for the sustainability of our environment. And I'm convinced that if we do not place water conservation, renewable energy generation, and the effects of the carbon emissions at the top of our to-do list, future generations, specifically my grandkids sitting back there, are just not going to have the opportunities that all of us sitting up at the front of this room are going to have. I'm honored to serve as the state architect. I want to finish what I've started, and I look forward to further discussion on these and any other issues that you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Whittam, for your testimony. We're going to open it up to questions and commentaries from the members when we start to my right. Mr. Canella.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. We had a nice discussion yesterday. I very much enjoyed it. And as I mentioned in our meeting, I'm a licensed civil engineer and you're an architect, so there's a natural tension between the two. We're trained to be tense with each other. But also in my business, we have occasion where we'll submit plans to DSA And it's been a, pretty good experience. I think you've done a lot of work to move that organization along to where they're very responsive to the customers. And so I've had very good interactions with DSA, and largely probably because of your leadership and the organization. And it's also nice to see that in the last 2 years, the satisfaction rate for your office has gone up from 55% to 71%. So I think you're doing a great job. I think you have a very important job. I think DSA in general has a very important role, and I very much appreciate your hard work. So.